Hello, hello, everyone. Hello, hello. It's great to see you all. I love this. Thank you, thank you. All right. We got a healthy crowd here today. I love it. We'll wait just another second or so and get going. So, hello, everyone. It's really great to have you here. All of you. I know pretty much all of you, not everybody I've met in person, but I'm really delighted to have you here as part of my launch team for this really cool book, workbook, the Leadership Pause Book of Practices. It's a companion book. And today, the training, hopefully, is what you can see on your screen, which is steady and unsteady times. We're going to harness the power of the pause today. So, oh, I love this. I really appreciate all of you for being here. One of the things I've been hearing a lot as we get going is this notion of everything is so unsettled. How do we actually steady ourselves? And so, this workbook, companion book to the Leadership Pause, and this training is really a thank you to all of you. So, I'm giving you little bits of snippets that's in the book. And I'm here today and I'm joined by Jill Tyler. You'll see her name on the screen. She's a member of my team as well. And she's going to be monitoring the chat as we go because I'll ask you to put some things in the chat. And then she'll also be sending us into breakouts because we're going to have a couple of breakouts today. So that's kind of the news as we go. And if there's a way to be on the on your video, that might help in terms of the breakouts that you're going to be in just a little bit. So it's totally your choice, but it's a great thing to do. So as we get going, what I would love you to do is take one word right now that describes your current state in terms of steadiness. So what would be a word to describe how you're coming to this call? And as you drop those into the chat, which Jill's going to monitor, um, I just have this to say. As we know, there are all kinds of world events that are continuing to unfold. The craziness of the war in Iran, political unrest, social, economic uncertainty. And I've been reflecting a lot on what this moment is asking of each of us in terms of our concern for the world, ourselves, and what it means to thrive. So we know that global instability doesn't only disrupt markets and institutions, it activates our human nervous systems too. So when uncertainty arises, so does our vigilance and our collective stress. Stress is contagious. So even when events like the war in Ukraine and Iran, even when they're geographically distant, we know that physiologically it's close because we feel stuff. And as people, as humans, we carry all that into our meetings, decisions, and the conversations that we're having. So, this is where our shared work becomes especially relevant. So, I hold that leadership today needs to not only be strategic, but we need to remember that it's physiological, that we are always together co regulating or not with the people around us, and that our steadiness steadies and that our reactivity amplifies reactivity there. So the real question that I'd posit today is not whether disruptions will occur, because they will, but the question is really from what state of consciousness, from what state of awareness of being will each of us respond? Thriving, steady leadership calls us to widen our perspectives, the aperture of what we see, and to strengthen our own discernment, and then to serve the whole system instead of each of us reacting to the loudest noises. And they're surely out there. So, what am I seeing over in the chat, Jill? What do you have for us? Can you say what people dropped in the chat?
Yes, we have a wide range, which is to be expected. So we start with chaotic and frazzled. I like this one. Rachel says sticky. I relate to that, Rachel. Curious, dancing from Mary, which sounds really intriguing. I love that.
Uh-huh.
Learning from Tasha,
Mhm.
tired. I also relate to that, Mary. Overwhelmed from Shauna. Steadier than yesterday. That's really good awareness, Gretchen.
Mhm.
Grounded from Jacqueline. Happy from Natalie. And Rami says willing. Very good. Turbulent.
Mhm.
Um, Overwhelmed yet determined from Shauna. All right, a shift already. Groggy
Mhm.
and hopeful from Andy. Saroha says, oh, whoops, mind is everywhere. And I think that's
Okay.
what we got today.
Okay. Okay, cool. So back when I wrote the leadership pause a few years ago, it'll be actually 4 years in July. I wrote it because I really needed to read it. I needed to live into what I was espousing and to embody it because I hold that leaders, we need leaders in the world who can steady ourselves, who can be present. And the first and most important way to do that is to start with our biological selves. So I'm going to challenge you all to tap into some triggers that you might have experienced. You probably have. And the way we're going to start off today is we're going to shift into a breakout here in a moment. But what I'd like you to do is to grab a pen. And because we are all leaders here, because all of us are leading in our respective arenas, what I'd like you to do is to answer this question with about a minute. I'm going to time this on my nifty timer here and take 1 minute and use your minute with a piece of scratch paper somewhere. Why is it important for you to steady yourself in your leadership, whatever that is, in this moment? Why is it important for you to steady yourself in leadership in this moment, to be the calm in the storm? And I'm going to give you a minute to go ahead and write your notes out. And Jill might type that in the chat. Why is it important for you to steady yourself in this moment, to be the calm in the storm? And we're just about at a minute. And what I would love for us to do is I'd like to just take a moment and I'm going to send you out in a breakout. So Jill's going to get us ready to go in breakout groups of three. And here's the deal. We only have 5 minutes, so you'll have to monitor your time. But I'd like you to briefly go around the bend and answer that question for yourself. Why do you think it's important? Why does it matter to you to steady yourself today? And so it's only about 3.5 minutes that we're going to have you out in the breakout. Let's do 3.5 and just go around the bend, answer the question, and then at the end, speak in appreciation to your partners, whoever you've been in this short conversation with. And Jill, are we just about ready or almost ready to do the breakouts?
We're ready.
Okay, send them away. Thanks, folks. And we'll come back and we'll debrief this, and then we'll move on to some content that I'll share with you today. So go right ahead. All right.
So just Luann, she looks like she stepped away, needs to join her room.
Okay. So, and it's on a timer, right? Did it ask you the time?
It did not.
Okay, so I'm setting a timer for 3 minutes. You might too.
Okay.
And then when it goes off, then we'll bring him back. Okay.
Yep.
We're getting this together. It's all good. And in the expedience of time, depending on how we're going, and I might ask you about the chat again, you don't need to say who it's from. or you can, you don't have to. So just kind of monitoring that. Um, what did you think about that slide with all the pictures?
What slide?
The slide, are you not seeing the slides?
No?
You're not seeing the slides. I'm just seeing the slides.
Uh, yeah, you're just talking like you're in a little box like the rest of us.
So there's no slide sharing?
There's no slide sharing, correct. You're just in a little box like the rest of the people on the screen.
Well, that's no good. That's no
Okay,
good
I
at
didn't know
all.
you. Okay. I didn't
Yeah.
know. I thought,
Okay. So I got to fix that. Why are the slides not sharing?
are you in presenter view?
Yeah, but you should be able to see the slides.
Yeah, but no, I don't. Nope, nope. Mm-mm.
Holy cow. Okay.
Did, did you share it? You have to share your screen.
And there's nowhere to share it here.
Well, at the very bottom, there's a share button.
And it's not showing up this time.
Oh,
This is a problem. Uh, oh, you didn't see all those great slides. Okay, now I'm really kind of fussy. I really don't know what to do.
yeah. I don't know. I don't know why the
Oh,
share
no,
button isn't.
here it is. Okay, can you see now?
Yes.
Okay, thank God. So you can bring them
Okay, we
back.
got 4 seconds.
Okay,
Okay, I'm going to bring them back.
okay, you bring them back.
Oh, it says all breakout rooms will close in 60 seconds. I didn't realize you
That's
had to give
okay.
it a minute.
That's okay. That gives them a little extra time. That's all good. Thanks, Jill. But you can see the slides now.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There's a slide with a whole bunch of photos. There's like war and
Yes.
the crop and
Yes. Yes. That's it. Okay. All right. Here we come. I love it. Is everybody back? All right. Hi, everyone. So I would love to hear from you, especially if you decide you want to chime in from somebody who's off screen, if you could just come off for a minute and share. But I'd love to hear what you discovered in your few minutes together. It actually ended up being 6 minutes. So why is it important? Why is it important that you want to remain steady? Hey, Kristen, nice to see everybody. Mary, Nancy, Andy, love having you all here. I would really, yeah, Rachel, go ahead, come off mute and just dive in. And Tracy will be next.
Oh, did I raise my hand?
Yeah, you did.
I I appreciate someone in our group shared about the volunteering piece, and it's really hard with volunteering to stay steady because there's always more, and it's like this constant like, oh, I should be doing more. So it's like,
Yeah,
how do you do what you do and just stay steady in that? And that makes a huge
yeah,
difference that we don't burn out there too.
yeah. It does make a huge difference. Thanks for that, especially with volunteers. Tracy, how about you and somebody else right after that? I'll take three and then we'll go. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
I just
Tracy.
enjoyed my group talking about how happy leadership is contagious. People have a tendency to to leaders for stability, even when
Uh-huh.
things are really chaotic, and that's the best way for you to be of best service to people.
Yeah, to make sure your happiness stuff is on target, right? I love that, Tracy. Thanks. Jacqueline, how about you?
Yeah, our group, there were like four words that really spoke to me that people talked about. Well, one was just the courage to go forward.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then sustainability, clarity. Um, yeah, so that actually were just a couple things that really spoke to me, just things that go across, I think, multiple domains
Yeah.
and things that people are doing.
Absolutely. So folks are coming from leadership at all different levels and different experiences, industries. So yeah, how to have courage and what is sustainable? Like, can we do that? So thanks everybody for playing here. What you ought to be able to do now is see the groovy slides I prepared that you did not. Can you see those now? I'm so much happier. Okay, so here's what I want to say is from my own leadership journey over time, what I know are two things that I wanted to share with you all today as part of this launch team and harnessing the practice of pause is that sometimes the awkwardness isn't outside, it's inside, and it's the sophisticated resistance that shows up when you as a leader, actually start changing and doing things differently. And then we have questions like, holy cow, what if my achiever part feels like I'm less productive? What do I do with that? Or what if I start to panic because my identity is shifting? I'm actually growing, but other people don't know what to do with me. And how do I distinguish between what's a productive struggle that's actually rewiring our nervous system versus I'm doing this wrong and I'm just kind of spinning up in anxiety? So, the reason this matters for each of us is that leadership efforts often fail, not because the practices that people are in or don't work. It's because we have an internal resistance and it gets really sneaky and sophisticated. And so, how do we actually work with ourselves in those moments? And then, second thing I want to share with you all is how do you take these kinds of embodied practices that we're going to speak to today and actually start to share them in your culture, in the nonprofit, in the volunteer organization, at work, so that they can make a difference without sounding like particularly woo woo or soft or this is just a bunch of BS or whatever it is that people say, because people say all of that and more. And you might have said it yourself. But how do we make these pragmatic and practical? So this matters because you and I can do all the exercises and practices in this workbook that I've prepared for you all. But if we can't translate them to working with the people we work with every day, then all bets are really off. And then what happens is we resort to coping. So this particular slide really speaks to me because I have felt like this at times, like, ooh, I'm all scattered all over the place. I tell a story in the leadership pause about early in my career when I was teaching a mindfulness stress management class, and I came down with a horrible rash. And I was scratching my legs. I was so agitated. Finally, I was coping, by the way. Finally, I went to the doctor. They did allergy tests. The good news, Chris, is you're not allergic to a thing. The bad news is that you know what? My diagnosis for you is you have chronic stress. I was juggling two jobs, I was buying a house, I was doing all the things, and I was kind of a mess and I was really irritated at the doctor. And so I was trying to hold it together, and holding it together is often not the right thing to do. So luckily at that time, I had come across the work of John Kabat-Zinn. Some of you know his work. Some of you might have even trained with him. It's about mindfulness at work. And he has a very simple practice. It's pausing to be with the body sensations, our emotional responses, those intuitive signals that need our attention instead of attempting to manage or cope. There's a big difference between coping and co-regulating. And I want to bring your attention to that today. Because what I did is I was able, as I experimented and practiced with John and that work, is I was able to start to stay with my own agitation longer. I was able to be with my clients who were more overwhelmed and to be with them instead of trying to fix something, because presence really matters. And I was able personally to linger longer with what was unfolding, because that's actually where the gold is. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide. I know almost all of you, but this is a little bit about who I am, this author, this one right here, a pragmatist. I really am like, what's going to work? And a somaticist, like, how do we use the wisdom of our bodies? And then Aikido's informed everything I do in the last 20 years. And I really like to garden and hike because it gets me back in touch with the best of what's going on with me. So today we're going to talk a little bit about that unsteady state of the world. I want to share with you a number of body-based practices to harness the power of the pause so you can move forward strategically and give you some ideas about how to take this into meetings. Some of you I know do a lot of space holding, so you might be familiar with this, you may not, but just to remind, today what we'll do is focus our attention. We're going to talk about energy and how to work with it relative to making effective decisions. You know, I published a listening report a couple of weeks ago called Still in It. I interviewed a bunch of people, and one of the things that came out was this notion of, in the current state that we're in, our capacity to make effective decisions is being compromised. So really, like, how do we listen to be able to make effective decisions? And then how do we help tap that collective energy to help others? So here's what I'd like. I'm going to ask Jill to pay attention here over in the chat. And if each of you could tell me, when you are at your not best, when you are at your worst, when you are maxed out, what is a word or two or five, however many you like, that comes up for you to describe what you're like in those non-resourced moments when the demands are too great? What word would you say? And you just drop those into the chat. And as they come in, whatever those are for you, I'm going to ask Jill to just share a few of the words that are coming up over on the screen.
Okay, so we have crabby, absent, judgmental, critical, exhausted, flat, unkind, ineffective and distracted, militant, yeah. Feeling sick, scattered, low capacity, shut down.
Okay. So it's safe to say and I would say irritable, and I can be super short when I'm in that non-resource state. And the way we talk about it in everyday language is that we're triggered. Somebody triggered me, something triggered me. That could be internal, like a memory. It could be external, like an event or a person. So we talk about being triggered. And one of the things that comes up is that we end up having certain feeling state. We're triggered to react. And so on this piece, you might see, different ways we feel when we're triggered: unheard, unloved, disrespected, powerless, all of those kinds of feeling words. And what I'd like to invite you to think about is most of the work that I see out in the world is like, let's get a grip on your triggers. And I'm going to say not so much. Let's actually mine those triggers for all the gold that is there. Because when we are triggered at a base level, our physiology is reactive. So there's truth in that we want to get a grip. But at the next level up, when we're triggered, it's because we actually care about something that matters. And so triggers are a portal into what we care about and new possibilities that we want to be able to respond to in the environment. And we know that there's higher trust levels when people experience leaders as emotionally strong, not weak. We know that people are more engaged and likely to commit to goals and actually fulfill on them, like in the 80% range, when they have a leader that is emotionally strong. So these pause practices are by no way soft skills. I call them power skills, and they're all about having a strategic advantage. Because when we can drop into what we care about, then we can have empathy for ourselves and for the people around us. When there's empathy without any accountability, we call that enabling somebody to get away with something. If there's accountability without any empathy, we know that is harsh. And so people in business, in work, in all kinds of organizations are more likely to stay in workplaces where there are empathetic leaders, because knowing our triggers gives us the capacity to know what we want to align to. It expands our capacity to be present with what is actually here. So when I had my experience years ago with those itchy bumps, I was not present to what was going on. I was very reactive. Knowing our triggers gives us access to information from the neck down, because somatic awareness, tuning into the body, is the first place to bring ourselves present. And most of us are not excessively skilled at knowing what our internal sensations are. And then the last thing is that knowing our triggers helps us to get out of an expert mindset, like I know it. It's really a way to stay present to what is true, and it lines then with our values. So tuning in is super duper important, because here's the deal. We're all energy bodies. And what is energy anyway? Because if we're simply coping like I was coping years ago, it costs us all kinds of energy. And that outflow of energy is what leads to exhaustion and fatigue. Fatigue is more short term, exhaustion is long term. So, energy is really this dynamic movement that every cell in our body is resonating directly to our level of current awareness or consciousness. We're resonating directly to our level of awareness. We would say on a day-to-day basis that energy is kind of the vitality and get up and go that we have. What we know is that our bodies are amazingly attuned to the environment around us, even if we're not consciously registering it. So these are three amazing teachers that many of us have learned from in various ways. So Albert Einstein, energy can't be created or destroyed, but it can be changed from one form to another. Want to remember that. Ginny Whitelaw is an IZL Roshi, IZL Institute for Zen Leadership. She's a Zen Roshi and also an astrophysicist, a teacher of mine. And everything in life is vibration, everything. And lastly, Bruce Lipton is a biomedical researcher I've been following for a long time, in that the universe is made out of energy. Everything is entangled, and everything, we're all together as one. So we want to tap into that. And I'm going to suggest that when we do via the pause, that we can learn from our experience. That's the experience of neuroplasticity, that the brain, which is actually not just in your cranium, it's in your whole body, that our brains can learn from our experience and our interactions with the world. And it's this ability to self-organize that regulates our flow of information and energy. So, for example, if we're thirsty, we go get a drink of water. If we're cold, we get a wrap or a coat to put on. And a common sense way to say that is that we organize ourselves around what's most coherent in our biology, not necessarily in our cognitive capacity, but our whole system. Let me say that again. We organize ourselves around what's most coherent in our biology. Yet resistance, we go back to that sneaky, sophisticated resistance I mentioned earlier. Resistance is also its own kind of energy, and fighting creates more of that. And we could debate at another time about what amount of resistance we need. But constant internal resistance can undermine our own capacity to lead well. And my experience on the Aikido mat for 15 or better years lets me know that biologically in our bodies, we can start to shift first there, and then that will affect our feelings. That can affect our perceptions, And that can affect our capacity to take a different action. So we're going to push pause just for a second. And I'm going to walk you through a short practice. And I'd like you to take yourself off mute and just say what you're noticing. So just take a pause for a moment and notice where your attention is. Is it on the screen, on your coffee, the work you have to do later? It's okay. You just want to notice where it is and you want to bring it back to this moment. And then if you take another deep breath, and if you're willing, drop all of those thoughts to the background, almost behind your back, while you stay in tune with your breathing. And then notice that you have a front side to your body, your chest, your heart, your belly, your legs, and then shift your attention to the back side of your body, shoulders, low back, your bum, your legs. And then notice that you have a left and a right side. And then bring your attention right back to your center, a couple inches below your belly button. Might even want to touch right there. And just tune in to that center space. To be centered from here is an organizing principle that we can cultivate with a pause. So just notice what's true for you right now. And know that to take a pause like this is to interrupt our automatic habitual action. So that could be a habitual thought, a habitual behavior. Those are often invisible to us. We just live them. And so we want to tune into the immediate present in the body. And the body is an amazing vessel that we live in that we can thank God for. It's a place of learning and action. It's where our moods and emotions live. Living in this body is the possibility of dignity for ourselves and other humans, and we can coordinate. And to pause like this gives us a body-based place to land when we're upset, when we're unsteady, when we're off and triggered and we need a reset. This body-based place is where we can go so that instead of performing, we're acting from a centered place. And go ahead and come on back and drop a word in the chat just to say what you're noticing with this very short practice. And Jill, if you could share what people are noticing in this short practice, and I'll say a little bit about why it's important.
So we've got stiffness in lower back and legs, calmer, felt relaxed, underlying steadiness with surface distraction, resetting, relaxed,
Great.
thought of lining up more clearly, aware of background noise, heavy, damp, aliveness in my chest.
Okay. So all of these are what's happening for each of us right now. And this slide here, the window of tolerance, Rachel, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see this? I can see you on my screen. Thank you. So this window of tolerance is actually, Dr. Dan Siegel came up with this, and it's a zone in the middle where we're optimally aroused. And this is in no way sexual. This is all about the nervous system and how we're able to function effectively. So when we're between, our energy and our attention is between those two horizontal lines, we're optimally functioning. So we can take information in, we can process it, we can make decisions and integrate it and send it out. If we're too aroused, we'll be anxious. or hypervigilant. If we're not aroused enough, we can fall flat into some really difficult times and feel low energy all the way to depressed. So what we want to be able to do is be able to not only stay within that optimal arousal range, we want to be able to expand our window of tolerance. And just like going to the gym where you're lifting weights for your biceps, and over time you can lift these boxes, like my dad said years ago, how can you lift that box? Well, I'd been working out, right? I could lift a heavier box. The same is true when we're practicing lifting the weight of our attention back to practicing pause. So that's what enables us then to move into a state of thriving.
Chris,
yes,
we have a question that I think you'll want to answer before we move on. Someone asked, does the window of tolerance look different for those with ADHD?
That is a really great question. And since I was just with Dr. Dan Siegel a couple of weeks ago, I would say that he might posit that it would look a little bit different and that there might be some additional challenges to somebody with ADHD in terms of how to work within their range. He would also say that the pause practice, he has one called the Wheel of Awareness. It's all about training our attention, whether we have ADD or not. So I hope that helps. Um, all of that's really important because what we want to do in life is thrive. Now, I happen to love this picture because I like whitewater rafting, and you can tell that these people are pretty skillful going down these humongous rocks. I don't think I would go there, but maybe someday. But the idea is we want to thrive. And what I would suggest to you is that thriving is a natural state of human functioning and the basis of all of our human potential, our development and performance. So when we thrive, we tend to have abundance of energy to unleash toward what we care about, whether that's business, social outcomes, family. And a thriving work culture attracts and develops and retains people at their best. So thriving is not only about a return on investment, thriving is about how we grow together. And given the VUCA state of the world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, a term from the Army Military College in late 80s, we would say that we want to learn to thrive and navigate this whitewater really, really effectively. And if we can do that, and I think we can move from being distracted and dysregulated and disconnected from ourselves and others to more focused and regulated and connecting. So I'd invite you to offer over into the chat a word that describes thriving for you today. And as Jill takes a look at those, I'm just going to go through this slide here. So here's your body. And what's really important as we focus our energy is to look at how and where we get information. So we get information from our body and all the places in our bodies, our muscles, our bones, all of it. We get information from our sensation. So all the five senses, but also enteroception. Those five are exteroception. Enteroception is what's going on internally in our organs. So how we notice and feel those. They all in turn affect our mood. So if you've ever wondered, like, how does this mood land on me? Well, it lands because something's going on physiologically to shift your mood one direction or another. Those moods affect our perception. So we would say here, like our thoughts, maybe our memories, and all of that we take into action, whatever action it is we're going to take. So we want to be able to look at how are all the effects externally and internally that are unsteady, how are they affecting me? And can I rise above it to thrive in order to move forward? So some brief ideas about how we reference sensation that I want you to have, because you may not have thought of all these. Some of you will be familiar with this, others not so much. We notice sensation in the temperature around us, hot, cold, tepid, lukewarm, our pressure. Are we feeling a lot of pressure? Are we feeling relaxed? Movement, streaming, coursing, pulsing, the color. We know from Tristan Harris, who used to work at Google as their chief ethicist, that if we turn the color function off on our iPhones, we're less attracted. It's going to have an effect on how we work with our energy. Contraction or openness, relaxation, expansion. These are all ways we reference it. And we talk about sensation like this. Oh my God, I have butterflies in my stomach. I am really hot under the collar, right? Um, she shoots from the hip. Ah, that's a no-brainer. My blood is boiling. I feel weighted down. It's too heavy. I'm warm. I'm cold. These are all ways that we reference sensation. The more we can dial into these and be aware and use them, the more we can pause and then know what to do with all of them. So here's a basic pause practice. If you take nothing else away from today, I'm hoping that this is it. Remember that our bodies are domains of action and learning and dignity. So the first thing is that we want to pause. And that pause could be 20 seconds, 15 seconds. And then we want to center. And center is a body-based activity, but it's more than that. It's a way that we organize ourselves. And we can use the body and all these senses to guide us, right? And ultimately, that will allow us to focus on what's most important to us. So let's take a pause right now. And we're going to pause, breathe in, and on your exhalation, allow your attention to go wide and expand. A beat or two longer. Let's do that one more time. Breathing in and exhaling long, releasing anything you might be carrying, including residual triggers. And one last breath, one more time. And out breath. Chances are good if I asked you to do a task or make a decision right now, after you've paused and centered and you're focused, you would be able to do that more effectively. Your decision-making default setting would be more activated. We know that there are 3 keys to working with energy that are relevant today. And I can say this with confidence. Ginny Whitelaw has been instructive in this notion of thriving and resonance, and that when we're thriving, by definition, that we're resonating. The energies within us are resonating inside our bodies and aligned with what we care about, and outside as well. So here are the 3 ways. I'd love you to take these with you. So it's really all about rhythm. I have a client named PJ, and he is a push, push, push guy, entrepreneur, and actually overdid himself and ended up in a bit of a difficult time. And what he was doing with his rhythm is he was out of rhythm because he was relentless in his work. And he had to learn to come back into rhythm with himself and find that. So we talk a lot about the window of tolerance and kind of where he's operating. So rhythm, it's important to find your own rhythm and not just be relentless. We want to have our energy be down and not up. So when you say something like, oh, he's a hothead, or she's a hothead, or she's all twisted up, we know what that feels like a little bit, some of us more than others. I have a client, Kristen, who is also a CEO at a big manufacturing company, and her energy gets spun up quite a lot. Has a lot to do with her history, how she grew up. In some ways, that doesn't matter as much as now her tuning into, oh, I get really spun up, I get caught. And what she needs to be able to do is to ground herself, that centering practice. I advised her this last week on, like, when you're centering, feel your toes, press them into the ground, bring your hands together and push them down as you're inhaling up, and do that 3 times. You want to push the energy down and feel into your feet. Last one is out, not in. We want to be able to drop our focus on problems. This is where we bring in the cognitive capacity and extend our view to our desired outcomes. When we focus on whatever we focus on, since energy follows attention, If I focus on problems, I'm going to get more problems. If I focus on desired outcomes, I'm more apt to get those as well. It also has to do with not resisting what is so. And that's where we move from coping to co-creating in ourselves and with others. So I have a client named Bryce, who's a VP of a big construction company, and he was all caught up in stories. And when he did that, he would just hunker down, and he thought you ought to hunker down too. And as a result of that, he was creating more internal mischief for himself. So we worked a lot on simply pausing to release the tension he was holding and to stop resisting what was so that he could work with himself more effectively. I'm going to go through this next slide pretty quickly. You'll have access to a PDF of this and also the recording, but this is just useful to know. There are four areas of emotional experience that are kind of grouped in buckets: anger, fear, sadness, and happiness. And you'll see some of those words there. Each group of them contains a specific kind of intelligence that can guide us. So remember, we don't want to just resist what is happening in our emotions and our sensations. We want to mine it to know what's going on. So the angers happen when a boundary has either been crossed or a rule's broken, and that somehow assaults our particular sensitivities. The fears reflect our intuition and our instincts, so they orient us to what's going on around us. Sadnesses, I've had a lot of sadness this last year myself, and the sadnesses come up when we need to release things that aren't working. That could be a job situation, a partner family situation, could be a lot of things, so that we can let them go. And then happinesses are all about the possibilities for how we can be presently engaged and connected with people around us. And when we do this, we shift and we can grow our resiliency. So beyond just coping, which I would say might be traditional performance, we can expand our capacity for resilience and become more adaptable, more steady, more able to engage in the world. There was a book written years ago called The Power of Full Engagement by Tony Schwartz and Jim Loehr. They're both, Jim Loehr is a sports psychologist, and he would say, and this is so true, that there's a balance between optimal energy expenditure and renewal of energy. And that when we have both the optimal expenditure of appropriate stress and renewal or recovery, that's what cultivates high performance and grows our resilience. And that's really what we want to be able to do. And so here's a practice I'm going to guide you through really in a couple of minutes. So I'd like you, if you're wanting to stand, I'd encourage you to do that. You can do this sitting as well, but you might find yourself wanting to stand. So I'll let you decide what's best for you. Bring to mind a, a recent kind of medium-sized trigger. And you can do this anywhere, anytime. Nobody has to know you're doing this. And you can do it sitting down or standing up, but bring it to mind. So maybe it's a 3 or 4 out of a 10 that actually is draining some energy. You're triggered, maybe not hugely, but a lot. And I want you, when you bring it to mind, to notice where you experience it most right now in your body. I don't want you to fight it or resist it. Just notice it. And then breathe into that experience. Again, you're not fighting it. You may not love what you're experiencing, but just let it happen. And then I want you to imagine that you are a pendulum experiencing that stress or trigger on one side and ease on the other side. And you're going back and forth, a little bit of stress and trigger, a little bit of ease, a little bit of stress, a little bit of ease. and let that pendulum swing. Don't force it, just allowing it to happen. And breathing. When there's too little energy or challenge, we rust out, we get lazy and complacent about life. When there's too much, we can burn out. So as you bring this to a close, what I'd like you to do is just maybe a few of you come off of mute and tell us what shifted for you, because whatever this is your nervous system's natural capacity for regulation when you give it permission. Your nervous system's natural capacity for regulation when you give it permission. I'd love to hear from a couple of you. You just come off mute. Rachel, you got something?
Sure. It's like the pendulum for me turned into a swirl where it
Okay.
brought in the stress and actually like harnessed it.
Aha.
Um, so it felt like an energy center.
Got it. Thank you. Anybody else want to jump in? Would be great if you did. All right. I can't see you all so well. So unless somebody chimes in, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to share this with you as we start our wind down today. Our job, your first and foremost job as a leader, this is Peter Drucker, a well-known management theorist in business. Your first and foremost job as a leader is to take charge of your own energy and then to help orchestrate the energy of those around you. This is a really important thing to be able to do because we're co-regulating. Our energy is infectious. Any way you cut it, our energy's coming out. Whether I'm short and short-tempered, which my husband would say, yes, I'm pointedly focused sometimes. I can be, and it's uncomfortable to be around. And then sometimes I'm really a boatload of fun, and so are all of you, because we want to find that energetic sweet spot and we want to know. So here I'm going to ask you to take your pen and jot down an answer to this question really quickly. And that is this. I would like you to notice when you felt most energetically alive as in some leadership capacity, the community, your family, at work. Like, when did you feel most energetically alive? What was happening and how is your body? Just jot a few notes. Because I want you to remember these later. I want you to be able to come back and say, yes, I was energetically alive here, and I want to feel more of that. And why this is important for your folks around you is that, again, we fight ourselves and resist. And so we want to master some ways to work with ourselves so we can work with others. So this part right here is an invitation, a 3-sentence invitation that you can use to involve others in some sort of meeting that you're having. And it goes like this. You want to name the pressure. Instead of, we're going to do this relaxation exercise, don't do that. You want to say something like, oh, we've all been juggling a lot. Things are pretty unsteady. We're all a little bit wound up with the world. And then you want to offer the practice as an experiment. Let's try taking a minute or so to do this practice that I think can help us more clearly and to think more clearly. And then you drop into the pause, center, reset practice. And then always, always, you want to give permission to opt out. Notice what works for you. There isn't any right way to do this. However it's showing up for you is all okay. And as a leader, you want to be attending to the room. You want to notice closed body language, people looking away. You want to tune into nervous laughter and acknowledge it. Yeah, we all get a little flummoxed sometimes when things are uncomfortable. You want to know that when people are having deep sighs, etc., that sometimes they're actually releasing. And then you want to be able to ask, like, hey, what would be most useful if we did this more often? Language and our attunement, again, that self-organization, are what creates safety for us to move forward. And of course, in the words of the very smart Wayne Dyer, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. If you change the way you look at things you look at change. So if we can change it by changing ourselves, we can assist others. So here are 3 different moves from Aikido, and then we'll wrap for the day today. And these are how to blend and redirect with practice. So you want to ask yourself, what does it look like for me to blend with the energy of people? We want to notice the paradox that we can be soft and present and very strong at the same time. Remember, these are power skills we're learning. We want to be able to come back and find our center in these trying times and to work with our resistance, not fight it. We don't want to add to how difficult it is by resisting what is true. Like if you find yourself saying, it shouldn't be like this, you want to rethink that because this is how it is, whatever it is, and it's what we have to work with. So that's where we want to start. So we're going to do this. We're going to meet the other person and blend with them. We're going to turn towards the other person. This could be on a screen in person and soften our gaze. We're centering ourselves right below our belly. Then we're going to move to say to them, I know that this is important to you. Tell me a lot more about that. And we want to stay centered ourselves while we acknowledge their energy state. Because truth be told, when you can stay centered and somebody else is not, you can shift their state. I promise it's true. So you want to sense what's going on with you, and you want to take a conscious breath, feel your own feet on the ground, and connect with what's true for you. And then you want to connect with them. We both want this project to succeed. We both want to have this work. You can ask a question. How would this outcome work for you? Can we figure it out together? Because blending does not mean agreeing. Blending means meeting people where they are. And you're not saying they're right or wrong. You're acknowledging their energy and concern just like your own. So earlier, I asked you a question. I'm going to ask you again. What do you care most about? Because when we tap into what we care most about and we are aligned and centered, that's when we have our most effective capacity to lead our lives and lead other people in endeavors that we're in. So just for this last moment today, bring up to your mind the visual of what you care most about. Kids, making an impact, outcomes at work, the environment, whatever it is. And then I'm going to shock you. I'm going to say, no, no more. It's gone. It's threatened. And that's abrupt. And it's intended to be because you want to use this awareness of, oh my God, that can't be. You might feel outraged. You might be irritated that I said that. But what I want to say is what you care about most when it is threatened, that is the most important time for us to be able to access a reset to like, oh, this is true. And I'm going to recenter myself. So today we've covered a few things. This VUCA world is changing at unprecedented rates. We require a new sensibility today. Our primary source of power is cultivating ourselves as leaders and teaching our teams. Pause, center, focus grounds us, and we can get a lot of traction by learning this very basic practice. Triggers are actually the way in, guys. It's the way. So if you think, oh my gosh, I have to like change all these, nope, you just have to learn more effectively about them, whatever you're triggered by, and tap into what you care about to thrive. Energy follows attention. The 3 steps provide a process to harness our pause, and connecting with what you care about helps with thriving. It's a lot today in a short hour. So thank you for your participation today. Here's the deal. What's next? Well, what's next, since you are members of my launch team, thank you so very much, are for you all to complete your reviews for the upcoming book of Leadership Pause Book of Practices. Thank you so much. And if you need some assistance there, you can feel free to reach out. I do have a page on the website under book. If you go to Q4 Consulting, q4-consulting.com and go to book, you'll find a resource page that might help. But this, if you click on these right now, you will find that you can go right to the form to complete it. And then I just want to invite you all to the launch party. And the launch party will be Tuesday night, Tuesday after work on the 28th. And it would be great to see you all there and to celebrate together. So thanks, guys. Hopefully you've taken some good stuff away from today, and look for the recording. It'll come out tomorrow morning. I have some folks that are helping me in the background, and I really, more than you can know, appreciate you participating and helping get this work out into the world. Super important. So thanks. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Take
Chris.
care.
Bye. Thank you,
Bye.
Chris.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thanks.